everyone, and welcome to another episode of Getting Hammered. I'm your host, Mary Catherine Ham. I'm here with my co-host, Vic Mattis of the Washington Free Beacon. The news will not stop newsing. We have so much to get to. I feel like I need a breather, but we're not going to get one today. But before we get into the Biden speech, the Bibi speech, the reaction to both, the chaos on the Hill next to the Capitol brought to us by pro-Palestine, pro-Hamas rioters. Before we get to all that, how you doing, Vic?
I'm doing well, Mary Catherine. Footloose and fancy free. The kids are in different locations. And we literally could say now, I hate using the term literally, but we actually can say now, we don't hear from the kids. and I haven't heard from my son. He's up with his cousins in Connecticut. My daughter is at a camp for cheerleading, and I guess she's been texting Kate. So at least I hear she's fine. I think they're just talking to my wife is what I'm saying. They talk to their mother, but not me. That's okay. And other than that, I have a ton of reading to do because I've got this trip coming up, as you mentioned, this really exciting World War II battle trip that I'm doing, and it's just I'm also, in addition to sort of assigned readings, I also have decided to read. I've been reading Rick Atkinson's Day of Battle. Now he had done the original, which was the North Africa, which is Army at Dawn. And now this is about Italy, and where I don't think I'm going to get to Rome before the trip, where the Allies are.
Right.
But don't tell me how it ends, Mary Catherine. I just want, they haven't even landed. I heard they might land in Anzio, this place called Anzio. I'm not really sure. Salerno, they're there now, but it's kind of a slog. I have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah, let's leave you in suspense.
There is another possible Allied landing, but it might happen in France, or it could be the Mediterranean. Churchill's pushing for that. Don't tell me which one it is. Thank you. Thank you for sharing with our readers. Now, and I have to say this. Let me say this. I genuinely did not know when you said it. I'm like, oh, I'm sure she's read that. How could she not know?
No, I don't know.
I can't believe that. That's so crazy.
I have a sort of a weird talent for avoiding spoilers because I saw The Sixth Sense like 2 years after it came out, and nobody told me. I don't know how I did that.
2 years is for that movie though. That was
a
big
now
deal.
This has been 20 years, 25 years. Although I think the last one came out in 2007. So
Deathly Hallows, yeah.
Now here's the deal. Is that I'm sure I've heard all of this before, but I didn't know enough to know what I was hearing.
Wait, hold on though.
You just happened to pop in right when I had all the necessary information to understand what you were saying. Now, look, if you're lost and you didn't listen to the last episode,
you should.
Vic spoiled the end of the last Harry Potter book for me. Look, J.K. Rowling is good enough that I was still wrapped, and actually, you didn't totally spoil it. It's more nuanced than what you were saying.
Yes. Oh, yes. I'm sure.
So it's okay.
But my question though is, you'd seen the movies though?
No.
You haven't? So you haven't seen the movies yet? Are you?
No, we're watching the movies as we read the books.
What? I forget that your kids are kids.
Yeah.
Because it's like I saw that with my kids when they're. Oh wait a minute. Yeah, they're old now. Yeah. And that was a long time ago.
So no, I haven't watched the movies.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so where are you in the movies?
So I went 25 years without spoilers, and then the day before I was finished, with
that really is awful.
With 100 pages left.
I was like, "There's no way. I'm sure she sees." I said, "Well, she's reading the book, but she's got to see the movie. Who hasn't seen the movie?"
Nope. Anyway, I very much enjoyed this series. I did not expect it to live up to the hype, and yet it did.
It did.
It's delightful. It's well written. The characters are fun. Not only are the characters fun, there are so many characters, and you care about all of them, and you know things about all of them.
So you're finally finished.
We finally finished yesterday.
Okay, here's what's amazing to me about you, is that these shows are on a loop on TV. So it's amazing that you haven't just stumbled upon them. Although I guess there's different parts.
I would be ignorant enough that I wouldn't know what was happening.
Right, and not watch.
Now,
I'm going to.
My oldest has occasionally spoiled some parts of the books because she is a super fan, and although she hasn't read ahead, she has other resources because there's a whole world of Harry Potter resources. Like you can have a broom encyclopedia right? There's like,
Yes.
or you can have a deck of cards with all the magic instruments from
Right.
the whole,
It's
or magical objects from the whole series. And so she will get previews of things from her Superfan,
merch.
yeah, her Superfan merch. And then she'll tell me, and I have also gotten mad at her. So you're not alone, Vic.
Have you seen so what movie are you up to then?
So we're on the last one. I don't love the movies.
That was my question. What do you think about the movies? What do you think about the acting?
The movies are very true to the books, which I appreciate. They're
Okay.
Which is why I knew you were spoiling it for me.
Yeah, 'cause it's not like I read the book. I actually had genuine questions about the book based on the movie because I didn't understand the ending.
They're pretty true to the books. You like to see everything portrayed because it is this very impressive magical world, and to see it brought to life
the
is
effects
cool.
are pretty good.
I think
Later.
probably for me, because I grew up in an era when all those actors and actresses had already been cast as those characters, they're a little bit in my head as I'm reading the books. So
you're picturing them.
To me, they seem perfectly cast.
Oh yeah.
But that's because that was the vision I had of them. But I find that the movies don't stick with me nearly as much as the book. The books are moving, the books are exciting, and I kind of I tune in and out of the movies.
When I did the Sub Beacon, Jonathan Last and Sunny Bunch were very tough on the child actors.
I don't find them like off-putting.
Yeah.
They're okay.
I think that early on they were a little rough around the edges. I always
true.
The kids get a kick out of my impression of, I think it's in the first one where Hagrid, the great Robbie Coltrane says, "You're a wizard, Harry," right? And Harry says, "I'm not a wizard." You know, it's like the most awkward delivery ever. But
I am interested in the last two. It's two movies, right? That make up the last
two. Yes.
Okay, so to watch those, I am interested to watch those. Partly because there is a thing in the Harry Potter books where, and you need it, and I appreciate it, but there's a lot of dialogue in those battle scenes, right?
Oh.
There's a lot of explaining going on.
Yes.
And in a book, it can work because you're imagining that all this stuff is happening while they're having this pretty long conversation about what is happening in this world. I don't think that's going to work on the screen.
No,
so
it gets condensed.
We shall see. Anyway, we did finish the book. It has been a 4-year-long adventure from 2020 to now because the girls were very young when we started, and each book gets more intense and more mature. So you kind of have to decide if your kids are ready for each book. And I felt, my 8-year-old is quite mature. The 10-year-old already probably knew everything anyway from her reading ahead and such. And so I felt like pretty comfortable with that. And it was sad to be done. And I do hope that someday the littles will want to hear it, and maybe even the big girls will read it to them, and I can just listen.
Well, you know what? I have good news for you.
Yeah.
Which is there are other movies like Fantastic Beasts, and they're just as good.
I have heard that's not the case.
Okay. Anyway.
I have heard that's not the case, but that series is really good. Really, really lived up to the hype, and we have done Narnia out loud before as well. I've heard Lord of the Rings. They should be a little older, so I haven't tackled that yet.
Yes, I have read. I've read The Hobbit, and then through Lord of the Rings, I got lost in there. And as far as I know, the story ends with Goldberry and Tom Bombadil. That's. I have no idea what happens.
I think that's correct. Yeah.
It gets in the weeds. It gets in the weeds. Okay.
Oh man. I also have to say that I know I didn't read it as a child, and of course my kids, they associate or they relate to Hermione and Jenny and Luna. And I would no doubt, as well as a child, have gravitated toward them. But reading it now, I cannot understand how anyone could have any other favorite character than Molly Weasley. Mother of 7.
Oh, yes.
Kick-ass witch. Making dinner. Killing villains. She's even got a smart mouth. Like, she's fantastic.
Yeah. And the actress who plays her is wonderful.
Fantastic.
She also played... Her name's escaping me now, but she also played Billy Elliot's dance instructor in the great movie Billy Elliot. Yeah, smoking.
There's a moment in one of the books where Draco Malfoy makes a crack about Molly Weasley's weight, and I was like,
"Wow,
how dare he?"
That's good.
And I had to put the book down and chill for a bit because I was so
You were
angry
so
at Drake
upset. Yeah.
on Molly's behalf. Okay. So that's what's happening in my world.
Congratulations.
I don't know what to do now. Like last night I was like, well, what should we read now?
Yeah.
But anyway, maybe we'll watch some more movies.
It's exciting. No, it's exciting when you finish a series like that and there's this opportunity of what next.
Yes.
You know? Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to mourn it for a couple of
The
days.
Hobbit is okay for young, but okay.
I've heard that. Okay. We'll see. If you guys have suggestions, let me know. Shall we move on?
Let's do it.
President Joe Biden gave a primetime Oval Awful speech last night.
Did you say Oval Awful?
I did. I'm sorry.
You know, the last of the week taping is usually wheels off.
Look,
sometimes we're drinking.
I do feel like
it feels like it though.
I do feel like yesterday, and we'll get into why. Yesterday in the news cycle wore me out, and I'm generally pretty resilient, but I am exhausted.
It was a beatdown.
I'm exhausted, not just by the pace of things, but by the press and others telling me that things I can see with my eyes are not true.
Yes.
And
That's
it upset me.
Or what you're hearing is not what you're hearing.
So I apologize for that. And a primetime Oval Office speech telling us why he stepped aside from the campaign and what the next 6 months is going to look like. Except he didn't tell us why he's stepping aside from the campaign. He just said he is.
Right.
In fact, he said, I feel like I've done a great job. I feel like I've earned another 4 years.
Yeah, he could go.
I feel like I could do another 4 years.
It just felt like it.
But now it just seems like passing the torch is the right thing to do. Why? Why does it seem that way? He didn't address his health. He says he's totally fine to go forward.
Right.
In fact, he has big plans to both reform the Supreme Court and solve cancer.
Yeah.
So that's a lot to do in 4 to 6 months. But I guess he's...
One of those two things I genuinely hope he accomplishes in the little time he has left in office.
That would be great. That would be great.
Okay, so I watched the...
Hold on. We should let him speak for himself.
Okay,
Let's
fine.
play a little clip
let's hear him out.
of Biden giving a... How long was the speech?
It was not long.
Not very long. It was 12 to 15 minutes at most. Here he is.
Just a little bit.
Telling us things.
For the next 6 months, I'll be focused on doing my job as president. That means I'll continue to lower costs for hardworking families, grow our economy. I'll keep defending our personal freedoms and our civil rights, from the right to vote to the right to choose. I'll keep calling out hate and extremism. Make it clear there is no place in America for political violence or any violence ever, period. I'm going to call for Supreme Court reform because this is critical to our democracy, Supreme Court reform. I'm the first president in this century to report to the American people that the United States is not at war anywhere in the world. We'll keep rallying a coalition of proud nations to stop Putin from taking over Ukraine and doing more damage. We'll keep NATO stronger, and I'll make it more powerful and more united than any time in all of our history. I'll keep doing the same for our allies in the Pacific. I'm going to keep working to end the war in Gaza, bring home all the hostages, and bring peace and security to the Middle East and end this war. We're also working around the clock to bring home Americans being unjustly detained all around the world. Today, the violent crime rate is at a 50-year low. We're also securing our border. Border crossings are lower today than when the previous administration left office. I've kept my commitment to appoint the first black woman to the Supreme Court of the United States of America. I also kept my commitment to have an administration that looks like America and be a president for all Americans.
So I watched the White House press briefing that afternoon with Karine Jean-Pierre, and she was asked, the typical tough question of why. Why is he stepping down, right? Because he didn't explain it in the statement. He said it's best for the party. He says it's best, for the sake of the party,
To unite the party.
I'm going to step down. And she says, well, you'll have to tune in So what you're saying is it's not health. Like if he wanted to, he could serve out the next 4.5 years. A reporter asked, and she says, yes, if he wanted to, he could. So she was definitely
This is Karine Jean-Pierre in the briefing yesterday.
in the press briefing. But she kept on teasing out whenever anyone else had questions about why. Can he give an explanation? What is the explanation? She said, stay tuned tonight and find out. It was like a gender reveal. The suspense was killing me.
No, I think the way, I don't know if I've said this before on the podcast, but the way that the press is allowing her to treat this and the way she is treating it is like, look, the president's going through a tough time and we appreciate you guys respecting his privacy. He's the president.
Yeah.
He doesn't get privacy right now.
Why is it a tough time?
I do appreciate that he went on camera.
Sure.
And spoke to the people. I think that we deserve that from him. I think we deserve an explanation of what the next 6 months will look like, even though this wasn't a great one. I think it's weird that he continues to take to the Oval Office to give, being generous, quite underwhelming addresses.
Yes.
If you're sitting at the Resolute desk and it's not more impressive than that, you're not doing a great job. And I am not a fan, but I'm not looking to kick the guy when he's down. And I understand you want an exit speech that like pays tribute to you and all these things.
Right.
I just don't think that did it. I don't think it even came close.
If you compare it to Nixon in 74 or LBJ in March of 68 and sort of a very long speech that leads up to, therefore, I will not seek. This was very disappointing. As far as cynical ploys go, this was brilliant because he does manage, he manages to announce all the great things he did, why he merits another 4 years, and yet never mentions once, as you point out, he says he is leaving, but he never mentions that he's leaving because he's getting clobbered in the polls. He never mentioned, I'm leaving because I'm just not well and I don't have the ability to do this, as everybody saw at the debate. Instead, he lets two words do a lot of heavy lifting, and those two words were personal ambition. But what does that mean? Like, if he's up by 10 points, would personal ambition make him not run? I mean, the personal ambition thing is, that's where everything is inside that.
The problem is that no one can admit what really happened. Because the facts are, he's likely not doing this job the way he should be doing it. He cannot campaign. We saw that. But that's not the reason he's stepping aside, although it should be.
Right.
The reason he's stepping aside is that they couldn't cover up that he wasn't doing the job.
Yeah.
And that they had to make a change for that reason. That reason is political. It is not lofty. It is to win this election. I also thought, as always, the juxtaposition of, especially in a very short speech, of, hey, we should not treat our political adversaries as enemies. You know, just because we disagree with each other, it doesn't mean that we have to be at odds. And yet also, he was there to say, if you disagree with his plan to vote for Kamala Harris as the inheritor of his legacy, then you are a fundamental threat to the existence of democracy and the country. Right. So I'm having trouble squaring those two.
So be a part of the solution. Don't be a part of the problem. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, again, when you're searching for reasons why he is quitting, he says, I'm quitting basically to save democracy.
Yeah.
But how is that the reason? It still makes no sense.
Well,
I mean, we know, again, as you said, we know what it is, but he won't say it. But,
well, and by the way, weren't you supposed to save democracy by winning the first time? You've had 3.5 years.
Yeah. Oh, and also, here's the other thing. He has accomplished more in one term than, like, other presidents have done in two. I guess that includes his old boss, Barack Obama.
Yeah, well, you know there's no love lost between those two.
Well, that's true.
So he's happy to say that. What did you make of these rumors? I saw a rumor yesterday that, well, first, I think there are leaks from the Obama camp that he's not impressed with Harris.
That Obama himself is not impressed.
That Obama himself.
Yeah, I mean, that wouldn't surprise me.
He has yet to endorse her. That seems interesting. Perhaps it is because he doesn't want to show his hand that he was part of the backroom dealings here, although I don't think he led those dealings because I don't think he leads. I think Nancy Pelosi.
He leads from behind. Do you remember that? He leads from
correct.
behind, as he famously said.
Pelosi was probably the hatchet woman. But yeah, there's leaking from his camp that he's not impressed.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't think realistically once they've rallied around Kamala that they can make another change. One of the rumors.
No, I think you may see some buyer's remorse here, but there's no way. But then we say this all the time, Erica. There's no way, and then it happens. There's no way he's going to step down, and then it happens. I mean, this is insane. Here we are.
Well, and then one of the other sort of theories of the case was that either Obama's sort of trying to signal that he wasn't part of this situation, or that indeed he did want to do the mini primary, and he did want someone else at the top of the ticket. I believe Mark Kelly was mentioned, the Arizona senator, and
part of that they also George Clooney suggested
that he wanted to do that. The George Clooney op-ed lends credence to this, and that
which he read
Biden's quick endorsement of Kamala might have been a middle finger to Obama as he's leaving the place.
Oh, right. Yeah, sure.
Like, let me foil your mini primary plans.
So that we're all, now you're locked in and you can't get out of this. It is very funny that you talk about Nancy Pelosi being the hatchet woman. My friend Todd Palladino would, his mother, who is absolutely adorable, Vivian, is this wonderful Italian woman. She would hate that I'm going to compare her to Nancy Pelosi because she is not a fan. But when they were little kids, Vivian, and she has that kind of a voice.
Right.
She would say, if you don't behave, if you don't do what I'm telling you to do, I will embarrass you in public. And that's basically in the same voice what Pelosi said.
Yes.
I will embarrass you in public. Here, And who knows what else? We would have gotten the Her report. You never know. I mean,
yeah. There's any number of things could leak after, to force him out of the situation, out of the race. Okay, I do want to note that Karine Jean-Pierre was on The View. It was her first appearance.
Yes, she was.
It was her first appearance. It was before the press briefing, before she had spoken to anyone else. I just want to read for you real quick. I know that The View is a daytime show, but you've got the first crack at the press secretary of the president, who has just stepped aside historically from his campaign. I just want to read for you the questions that they asked. I believe this is Whoopi. People love Joe Biden. People talking all weekend. He is a lovable guy, and he's got a good heart and all that. There was a pile-on by Democrats to get him out of there. Does Joe feel betrayed by any of that, or does he understand that it was for the country also? Oh, it gets better. Second question, which is not really a question, I believe Joy Behar exclaimed, and all the great stuff he's doing for student debt. Okay. Sonny, is there anything else he wants to accomplish? And credit to Alyssa for one mildly critical question. There have been criticisms about whether the administration has been transparent enough about Biden's health in the months leading up to the debate. But now calls have gone further, including VP candidate J.D. Vance saying if he's not up to serving 4 more years, can he serve out the rest of his term? How do you respond to those criticisms? Karine Jean-Pierre, that's ridiculous. A chorus of panelists, he's ridiculous. No follow-up question, the end.
So he's great. What you're saying is that the president's in great health, but this is all, again, they are all in lockstep now because...
Well, yes, it is indeed a great segue to the media's reaction to Biden's speech, which was to call him Washingtonian.
Jen Rubin at the Washington Post compared Biden's speech to George Washington's farewell address.
If you cannot appreciate the dignity, the grace, the selflessness, the patriotism of that speech, akin to Washington's farewell, but instead feel compelled to denigrate him, nitpick, or return to petty partisan politics, I pity you. You're denying yourself the majesty. There's more. Hold on. The majesty, the inspiration of America, and of a great president. Go self-reflect.
Would you go self-reflect, Mary Catherine?
Like I said,
Yeah.
I actually would have liked to have felt that was a historic moment, that it was an important speech. It felt like a small speech. It felt like a stump speech.
The Jersey in me wants to just reflect on this. It really. No, don't worry. Don't tune into YouTube. I didn't do anything. Don't get nervous. Don't get nervous. Mary Catherine, I was going to say, it's they're in lockstep, because now anytime even talking about the president's health now, they're ready to move forward. And there's now no need to wonder about how Joe Biden is doing. Joe is fine. So on CNN, Ana Navarro, in fact, she referred to questions about Biden's health as idle speculation.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
We're back to cheap fakes. We've just gone full circle. I'll play for you Axelrod's pronouncements about this speech, which are a little rich because he knew all the backroom dealing was happening.
He did.
But let's play that. And to be fair to him, he's supposed to be a partisan guy.
Right.
He's done an unnatural thing, very rare in the annals of history. He stepped away from power, and he did it in the interest of the country.
In spite of, as he said, personal ambition.
I think this will. I think history will look kindly on Joe Biden, and I think people will look differently on him tomorrow than they did a week ago, and they will maybe see his achievements and his commitment to this country more clearly.
First of all, just a nitpick. He didn't step away from power. He's still the
president of the United States.
He's the president. So I guess he stepped away from the opportunity for another 4 years of power. But no, I think the correct thing to do, by the way, would be to relinquish his office to Harris.
Now,
I am no fan of hers. I don't think she's particularly capable of doing the job, but it would be probably better than the very low functioning situation
which is why they cannot admit that he is not well. And people are talking about when he called into Kamala's campaign. We talked about this in the slurred speech, and other people I've spoken to have expressed concerns as well. But they're not supposed to talk about that, and so that's one thing. The other thing is, all these pundits now, and Democrats who get emotional, and Van Jones as well on CNN, about Joe having on his own decided. Not like he was made an offer he couldn't refuse, and that Nancy Pelosi was going to leave like a horse's head on his bed, because that was the next step. But that he did this on his own, and that when the annals of history, as David Axelrod is saying, they're teary-eyed not because of Joe's goodness. This is just my speculation, if you will. They're teary-eyed because they feel bad that they beat this guy to the ground, right? This is
really
their own.
did.
This is their own teary. They're tearing up because we bleeped them over good.
Yeah.
That was it.
There was a famous. Well, and this is
congratulations.
This is part of the transaction, is that he has to be lifted in this way. It's shameful that the press is going along with it. That's part of the problem. What strikes me is there's a famous sort of notion and ad that ran about the Paul Ryan. The Romney-Ryan ticket, when Ryan was added, that because of his desire to reform entitlements that are going broke, that was akin to throwing a grandma in a wheelchair off a cliff.
Yeah.
What the Democratic Party has done is they have thrown a grandpa off the cliff, and as he is falling, they're saying, look at how beautifully and selflessly he glides to his death. I mean, it is a ludicrous thing.
That's exactly right. I was also reminded of, for fans of The Sopranos, when Tony Soprano gets challenged by the very older Feach Lamont, played by the great Robert Loggia, and Feach is in the way. He's an old guy, and but he's just messing things up, and Tony schemes. Spoiler alert. Tony schemes to get Feach set up, and then violate probation and go back to jail.
Right.
And so, because he's just in the way and he's ruining things, and it works. And then Silvio comes in and tells Tony it's done. He's on his way back to prison. And Tony sits there and he just goes, the man was a legend. He's a hero. I'm like, you're the very person who did this to him.
This is it.
And this is it. This is what's happening.
So I want to note another very notable slobbering.
Yes.
This is Bob Costa of CBS News.
Bob, formerly of National Review. I'd like to fight that out.
There's a picture. In the room with President Biden were his son Hunter, I believe his daughter Ashley was there, Jill was there. At least one grandkid was there, a grown grandchild. They're sitting along the side of the room as he's speaking. There are several pictures of him, of that crowd. And then at the end, he walks away, and there's a photograph of Biden leaving the Resolute desk, Hunter Biden sort of reaching up to hug him. They're sort of in mid-hug is what they're moving to.
Yes.
They're looking at each other. It's a weighty moment. And sort of the hands outstretched. Bob Costa. A powerful photo. The hand toward his father's face. The eyes. Put aside politics and everything related for a moment, and viewed simply on a human level, you see two men, father and son, still at each other's side, more than a half century since the darkness of December 18th, 1972.
The dark. Wait.
That's the
right.
car
Yes.
wreck.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm thinking.
But
That's a bit much.
let me ask, reporters,
Uh-huh.
please don't put
Slobber.
everything related for a moment to the side. Keep your wits about you. This is embarrassing.
It is.
It's embarrassing.
To a lesser extent, Peter Alexander, nice guy, who asked very tough questions of Biden, also ended up tweeting out yesterday with a picture of Biden and family there greeting the staff. And it was ice cream for everyone. And it was, it's a big celebration. Everything's great.
As my friend Guy Benson said, all's well that ends well. Just for perspective, what Stephen Miller on Twitter, @RedSteez,
Yes.
says about the photo. What we see is a 15-year-old family international influence peddling and money laundering scheme involving China and Russia, Ukraine that enriched them for millions, involved human trafficking, classified information ending up in the garage, millions in drugs and hookers. Fine, cool. A convicted felon, all coming to a crashing and deserved humiliating end none of them wanted. But you're the journalist here.
That's a great response.
I feel like some of that context is warranted.
Do you, what are your thoughts on the conspiracy theory of payoffs in order to get Biden to step down? That they're going to say that people and donors, people who are very, very tough in telling Biden that they're turning off the spigot, that somehow if you decide that you're not going to seek re-election, we'll help you out.
I think there's a runway for his family.
Mm-hmm.
There's a cushion for his family. No, there can be no doubt.
Right. Yeah.
Part of the motivation, it seems to me, quite clearly was to stay at the station at which they are accustomed to.
Right.
And the people surrounding him wished to do that. 7 of them, by the way, are on their way to the Olympics right now.
Oh, yeah.
In his dark moment.
Kamala's already there. They
His
landed
dark
at
moment.
Orly this morning.
Jill is off.
At 4:30 this morning.
I thought it was an interesting, no hate, she looked really nice, but
The white jacket.
Ashley Biden was in the Oval Office for this speech, and she was wearing, goes to our discussion about different types of clothing at different places, Olympic sweater, white jeans, casual shoes. I just thought that was an interesting choice.
Well, I will tell you why.
Why?
Because you're talking about it.
Are they getting on the plane?
Because they got on the plane right after that.
Okay.
They went at night and then they arrived at like 4 or something in the morning. So that's the what you saw, Mary Catherine, was the airplane outfit. In case you're wondering,
well, in that case, it's a very nice airplane outfit. It is a surprisingly casual Oval Office address outfit.
In particular for the one where he announces he's not running.
Well, there you go. So that's what's going on there.
I think it is funny because they will have problems in the sense that nobody is going to want Hunter to serve on a board now, like Burisma, because what does he bring to the table anymore? And so that sort of power and connection has come to a family end now.
Are you telling me that it wasn't Hunter Biden's skills
that
got him that
I'll
job?
tell you, he did go to Georgetown, so international affairs and such.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure he was in the business school. That's how they did things in the business school.
All right. Well, Kamala has been out on the trail a bit. She was in Milwaukee. We can play a little clip from that.
Good afternoon, Wisconsin.
She's decent at reading from the prompter. She certainly is a relief to many voters on that side to hear her do that. And just to give you an idea, I think we'll play a little Harry Enton. This is the numbers guy over at CNN, going through how she might actually open the map up for Democrats, and that is important, even though she is not wildly loved yet in polling, which, by the way, I think we've seen 3 or 4 polls since
there have been
this big switcheroo, as we call it,
including CNN.
We've had polls that show Trump still with a lead, often within the margin of error. Interestingly, the CNN graphic for a 49-46 result was no clear leader in CNN poll.
49-46 Trump is margin of error. 49-46 Kamala is clear leader.
That's coronation.
Yeah,
that's what that is. But here's Harry Anton talking about, although this will be an uphill battle, what Harris is capable of changing.
Look among black voters. She's doing 8 points better than Joe Biden was in April and June, this, of course, Harris poll being in July. How about Hispanic voters? She's doing 6 points better among Hispanic voters. Now, here's the interesting thing. She's, in fact, not doing all that much better among white voters. She's only gained a point compared to Joe Biden among white voters. So she is, at least at this point, looks like she is fulfilling what a lot of Democrats were hoping, that is bringing back together that Democratic base, that diverse Democratic base that Joe Biden seemed to be lacking in, at least this time around.
And she can take that support to places like Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, Nevada, become much more in play than they were for Biden. So that's a big deal. But let me play you another clip that seems to illustrate why it's not a slam dunk. These are on MSNBC, a focus group of Wisconsin women.
How do you perceive Vice President Harris compared to President Biden in terms of competency and experience?
I think she's worse. She doesn't even know what's going on at the border.
Right.
And that's what she was supposed to be doing and in charge of. I mean, as a school teacher, if I did not do what I was supposed to be doing, you better believe my job would be in jeopardy. Well, it isn't. Not only was her job not in jeopardy, she was just handed a promotion.
Is there anyone that Kamala Harris could appoint as her vice president that you would find reassuring, would make you consider voting for her?
No. Never consider voting for her. No. I would do RFK Jr. way before her.
Yeah, same. Absolutely.
Yeah. And she's not the first woman to run for the presidency, Hillary Clinton. I'm assuming no one voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016. So it's not necessarily going to sway you to vote for a woman in office. When do you think America will have a female president?
When there's a competent one.
I don't get a good feel for her.
I think she's an idiot.
Right.
Mary, why do you think that she's not that bright?
Because she hasn't done anything in the time that she's had. We don't know anything about her as far as her 3 years so far in the White House. She's not real smart.
That's about as thorough a drubbing as you're going to get from a focus group.
I assume that. What are the odds that they just happen to pick all Trump voters just then? I mean, I'm just trying to figure out how that works. That is even for me, I find it to be a very interesting sampling.
These are Wisconsin women voters.
Yeah.
If that is their initial take on her, they have a lot of work to do. On that front, the AP reports today, the fight to define Harris is on, because this is what we do in this time of a campaign, is that as soon as someone is introduced to the American public, both sides go to work trying to say, this is who this person is, because a lot of normal voters will only have the top lines in their heads.
Right.
Just days into her, this is AP reporting, just days into her new role as the Democratic Party's likely presidential nominee, Kamala Harris is already facing a wave of Republican-backed attack ads, questioning her personality, her progressive record, and what she knew about President Joe Biden's decline. But for now, at least, Democrats have yet to engage in the summertime advertising fight. And in a sharp reversal from much of the year, Republicans are suddenly dominating the airwaves. Overall, Trump and his allies are outspending Harris's team 25-1 on television and radio advertising, more than $68 million for Republicans compared to just $2.6 for Democrats in the period that began on Monday, the day after Biden stepped aside, through the end of August, according to an AP analysis of data compiled by the media tracking firm Ad Impact. That is a very big deal.
The war chest is crucial here when you think about how much money is being spent. And sometimes, if you've got a bad candidate, like Joe Biden was, it didn't make a difference that, George Clooney and Julia Roberts were able to help people, help them raise $30 million, right? That just gone. It's out the window, right? Whatever. But in this case, it's about taking to the airwaves and actual clips. You don't have to do much work here. This is pretty easy.
Her words really do it for you.
Yes, it's not. You don't need to have people say, "Oh, she said this to me," or he claimed to do that, or whatever. You just have her on the stump or in interviews with Lester Holt talking about how she's never been to the we've been to the border without saying that she's never been to the border, and saying, "I've never been to Europe. What's your point?" And I support the Green New Deal. I am for, ending private insurance. And the list goes on and on. But you have to get it out there, and that costs money.
And you have to get it out there quickly.
Yes.
Because
quickly,
there's
to control the narrative, and then it'll be hard to recover from that. Meanwhile, for the Harris campaign, they're trying to get Biden's war chest, right, which is almost $100 million.
Yes.
It's $91 million.
By the way, we should note also that Trump was way behind raising money, and the RNC were way behind raising money for much of the year, and have caught up and even surpassed Democrats, which is a twist in this tale I did not see coming.
There are FEC rules in place, supposedly, where she can't get the grand prize, the $91 million, because Biden was not yet officially the nominee. She can get maybe $2,000 out of that. But I think somehow, so this is going to be litigated. They talk about Trump lawyers trying to prevent it from happening. I bet you somehow she gets the money.
They're going to make sure she gets the money. But I think it should be hard for this reason. Mm-hmm. They should have to jump through hoops. The FEC has rules about this. If, in fact, by the rules, it looks like Kamala Harris is allowed to take a $91 million contribution, which is not something that is allowed under our laws, right? That's a problem. Yeah. Now, the FEC, somebody from the FCC was saying, normally when campaigns have a weird issue like this, they come to us to discuss what that would look like and how guidance for how you would do this. The Democrats did not. They just refiled as Kamala for president or Harris for president, and said, well, this money's ours now. So the Republicans have filed an FEC complaint, which is a big step down from a lawsuit. Maybe there will be a lawsuit later. FEC complaint is pretty namby-pamby. Right. Like, they might figure it out in a couple of months. But I do think they should have to find ways to play by the rules here, and that might mean that some of that money has to go other places and is not as useful for her campaign as it would have been for Biden's. But every party should know moving forward that this will be a tricky thing for you to try in the future.
To try to pull it off.
I don't think it should be a gimme, although I'm sure the press wants it to be a gimme. Speaking of which, when you're raising money as a Republican, you do have to spend money to fight the media as well as...
Yeah.
And I am... Oh, man.
This is how, before we started the show, in fact, for our listeners, we were just talking about why do we feel so mentally beaten down? Mm-hmm. And it's...
I'll tell you why, Vic. I'll tell you why.
Yeah, why?
Because if you are a right-of-center person, or just someone who's not extremely progressive in this country, whether it's on Russiagate, whether it's on COVID, whether it's on Hunter Biden's laptop, whether it's about the Supreme Court or the Constitution or loan forgiveness and whether the president's allowed to do those things, or the president's health. You are in an abusive relationship with the press because the press tells you every day that what you're seeing is not real.
Right.
And that is gaslighting.
Or what they tell you one day is not what they tell you the next day. And they'll say, we never did that.
It's like hanging out with Nurse Ratched.
Yeah.
Like she has the ability
From One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
To shape your life, to shape your reality. She can tell you what's real, even though that's not what's real.
Right.
Case in point, this utter, despicable nonsense they're trying to pull, where they say that Kamala Harris was not the border czar.
It never happened, Mary Catherine. It never happened.
Okay, I'm going to play a clip from Newsbusters that wisely compiled all of this.
Yeah, and references to.
Just witness this Orwellian crap, okay? These are back-to-back clips, each one of them, of before and after Joe Biden dropped out of the race, talking about this issue specifically.
Quote unquote border czar. Vice President Harris was not a border czar.
That's after he dropped out. Let's go to before.
Meantime, Vice President and border czar Kamala Harris facing some backlash.
What he said about Harris and immigration was not true. She was never appointed border czar.
And this will be her first visit to the U.S.-Mexico border region since she was appointed as the border czar by President Biden.
People gonna have to counter the misinformation. You already hear folks talking about the border czar. She wasn't the border czar.
President Biden tapped Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, to be the border czar.
Now, she wasn't the border czar. That's what Republicans labeled her.
They were very critical of Kamala Harris, especially in her role as border czar.
Now what she's up against is folks lying about her border record, calling her a border czar.
Kamala Harris, who was appointed as the border czar.
The Biden team didn't declare her the border czar. They wanted her to work on kind of the root causes of immigration.
There has been so much criticism against Kamala Harris. You know, she was the border czar.
Calling her sort of the border czar, which wasn't necessarily the case.
So the border, if they weren't planning to address it in a major way, do not make her your border czar. She met with some of the Northern Triangle countries, but nothing has effectively changed.
Okay.
Spectacular lying.
Do you remember the Lester Holt interview, which I mentioned earlier on this episode?
Yes.
Where he asks her why she hasn't been to the border, and says, we've been to the border, and then she says, I've never been to Europe. His question was mistaken, you realize, because why would she go to the border since she's not the border czar?
Yeah, let's play it real quick. Why is he even asking that question back in the day, we wonder, in 2021?
We've been to the border. So this whole thing about the border, we've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. And I mean, I don't understand the point that you're making.
Well, the point that he's making is that she was made border czar. Yeah. Let me help our friends in the press who maybe they're new to town. Maybe they're new to politics. When someone is referred to as a blank czar, it doesn't literally mean that they got a title of czar, as we are not pre-Bolshevik Revolution Russia.
Yes, it was, okay? They succeeded.
They're not
Nicholas II.
They're correct. Kamala Harris is not a direct descendant of the Romanov family. Okay, so she is not eligible to be an actual literal czar. But that is a term that we give someone for a suite of issues.
Yeah.
They are working on.
Since like the drug czar.
A portfolio of public policy issues that are your domain. She was handed this portfolio, which included border security, migration to the U.S. through said border, and yes, root causes in Central America that were causing that migration to the border, after which point she was made the border czar. 9 million more people came across the border.
Yeah.
This idea that she was not given that job is absolutely insane, and the things they are doing to claim it are even more insane, by which I mean Axios, which is a pretty decent publication.
Of course, they broke very good news against Joe Biden when he was still the nominee.
Axios reported yesterday.
Lots of leaks.
That she's not the border czar, guys.
That's right. Correction.
But if you look back in Axios' archives, you will find, I believe, the same reporter referring to Harris in 2021, because it was completely non-controversial, because it was true, as a border czar. What did they do, Vic? Did they update yesterday's story to reflect that indeed she was the border czar? Or did they go back in time?
They went back in time.
They went back in time to put a correction on a 2021 story that says, in fact, she was not the border czar, because we are literally rewriting history right now as journalists.
It's a good thing, Mary Catherine, that Axios is only online, because if it were in print, they'd have to take all the actual print copies and cut out references to border czar, and they could put them in a little hole in the wall where there's a pneumatic tube and it'll suck it away. Thank you. Yes, that book I read. It is quite remarkable for them basically to say what you heard and what you saw didn't happen. It's a figment of your imagination.
There's another one I'll let you know about, GovTrack, which charts sort of the basic liberal or conservative
Right.
nature
Yeah.
of each senator and each House member's
Right.
voting record had compiled Kamala's voting record. And back in the day, she was asked about it by a CBS journalist. Here we go.
You're very different in the policies that you've supported in the past. You're considered the most liberal United States senator.
Somebody said that, and it actually was Mike Pence on the debate stage. But
Yeah. Well, actually, the nonpartisan GovTrack has rated you as the most liberal senator. You supported the Green New Deal. You supported Medicare for all.
But Mary Catherine, let me just make a really quick, brief correction. You said some reporter.
Mm-hmm.
That would be my classmate, Nora O'Donnell.
Oh, sorry.
From Georgetown. Thank you.
All right. Is it Nora O'Donnell or Kelly O'Donnell?
Nora. That was
Nora?
CBS.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Sorry. I apologize for getting my O'Donnells mixed up.
Yes. One is better than the other, sort of, but I'm not going to get into it now. Please.
GovTrack has disappeared that entry,
Yeah.
dubbing her the most
That's
liberal
right.
senator. So now your nonpartisan organization, which allegedly keeps track of these things, has memory hold the idea that she was the most liberal senator. Now, luckily, she's on video taking all of these stands, including
For now.
I know how fast before they get taken down from the internet, including taxpayers should pay for illegal immigrants' health care.
That's right.
Crossing the border should be criminalized. She wants to have the $93 trillion Green Deal, and she would get rid of the filibuster to do it. She wants to regulate eating behaviors, to limit the amount of red meat that we consume. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. In fact, we can replay that Dave McCormick ad
It's a great ad.
that came out immediately, or like in the days after she was named.
Kamala Harris is inspiring and very capable. The more people get to know her, they're going to be particularly impressed by her ability.
The nonpartisan GovTrack has rated you as the most liberal senator.
I am prepared to get rid of the filibuster to pass a Green New Deal. There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking.
Would you ban offshore drilling?
Yes.
What is the solution for voters in the fossil fuel industry?
Giving the workers an ability to transition. We're not going to treat people who are undocumented and cross the border as criminals. That's correct.
Raise your hand if you think it should be a civil offense rather than a crime to cross the border without documentation.
Abolish ICE. Yeah. Is that a position you agree with?
And we need to probably think about starting from scratch.
Outdated, it is wrong-headed thinking to think that the only way you're going to get communities to be safe is to put more police officers on the street.
Would you support changing the dietary guidelines? Yes. The food pyramid. What people
Yes.
to reduce red meat specifically.
Yes.
People who are convicted in prison, like the Boston Marathon bomber, on death row, people who are convicted of sexual assault, they should be able to vote?
I think we should have that conversation.
We have to have a buyback program, and I support a mandatory buyback program.
So for people out there who like their insurance, they don't get to keep it?
Let's eliminate all of that. Let's move on.
I am opposed to any policy that would deny any human being public health, period.
The more people get to know her, they're going to be particularly impressed by her ability.
So you can get a sense of all these positions. She took them recently. This is not some 30-year-old grainy footage, okay? These are from 4 and 5 years ago. These things are just true.
Right.
And they are telling you they're not true.
Do you remember how far Republicans had to dig to connect Clinton to, I believe, a flag burning in a protest in Russia? Do you remember in the Soviet Union?
Oh,
you know, and there was and that he was there at the time, and it was they riffed on this. I could be forgetting the details now, but they riffed on this in that ridiculous Michael Douglas movie, The American President, where his love interest, played by Annette Bening, she was at a protest where they burned the American flag, but it was a different time. You know? Anyway, but you had to go way back to college. You go back to college for this.
No, this
thing,
you have to go back to 2020.
Yeah. That's right. And let's not forget her support of Jussie Smollett, or as Dave Chappelle would say, je sais Smollett. And even after it turned out that he was a fraud and that he had done it to himself, Kamala, people forget this, she doubled down and said, okay, fine, but it's still a teachable moment because it's happening.
This will segue well to our next subject, which is Bibi's speech.
Let
me say, on Fox and Friends yesterday, another reason I got annoyed Brian Kilmeade, who's one of the co-hosts, was noting that Harris was not going to be at the Netanyahu speech, a joint session of Congress that he was addressing, one of our closest allies, besieged on many sides in this war. She would not be presiding over the Senate, even though we're using the term literally a lot, but that is literally her job. Instead, she was going to be in Indiana at a sorority event. She is an alum of a black sorority from Howard, and she went to this event instead. Kilmeade refers to this event as an event for a college sorority. And the head of the White House Correspondents Association and the head of the DNC both declared that Brian Kilmeade said colored sorority. That he said colored sorority, just casually, NBD.
Because we all know how he's really, we knew it. We knew all along what he's thinking.
This is a career-ending accusation.
Sure.
Of course it doesn't occur to them to do Occam's razor here. Do we think the morning host, who has no history of this, just wantonly used the word colored to describe a sorority? Or do we think he said college sorority because that's where sororities happen?
Right.
They didn't check with Fox. They didn't check with Kilmeade. Fox obviously pushed back. A lot of people online pushed back because it's fairly clear what's going on here. He does, like what it's called in the broadcasting business, eat the word a little bit, where it's not, as you guys might notice, sometimes I'm not perfectly enunciating.
Yeah.
But they heard what they wanted to hear. And what they wanted to hear was something divisive and awful that would lose him his job. They did no checking. They did no benefit of the doubt. This will be the play moving forward. Now, the White House Correspondents Association head, his name is Eugene. What's his last name? He's of Politico. Eugene Daniels said basically, I take them at their word, and he deleted the tweet. The head of the DNC, Jamie Harrison, I think is stuck to it, as have like Michael Steele, for instance, said, I heard what I heard. It's going to get nasty out there.
Yeah, but well, they're also being, anyone who mispronounces Kamala Harris's first name as Kamala, which, by the way...
Which they all did for 4 years.
Oh, sure, and that was okay. And that's also the name of a WWF wrestler. He was terrifying, by the way, but unrelated. I knew it was Kamala because, that is an Indian name, and my friend Ashok Bajaj, his mother's name is Kamala. So I knew it was Kamala, but the idea that somehow this is secretly this not-so-micro-aggression, our friend Raihan Salan on CNN had said, look, people mispronounce my name right here on this show, to which Ana Navarro said, you're not running for president. So, great.
She's a gem, that one. We've still got 2 more things to talk about.
I know,
so let's
sorry,
get it done.
let's get to B. Sorry.
All right. The Prime Minister of Israel addressed a joint session of Congress yesterday, and that joint session was attended by neither Biden nor Kamala Harris. I think, look, I understand what they're trying to do. They don't want her looking close to the pro-Israel cause. They just don't. They're looking to shore up support among those who are anti-Israel. That is part of their base. This is just a fact, y'all. But I thought she sort of missed an opportunity to, with normal voters who are largely pro-Israel and pro-America and pro this alliance, to just look presidential. If you're dealing with a head of state, you are elevating yourself to a head of state level. Instead, who was elevated? Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. He's there shaking hands and introducing Netanyahu. Netanyahu gave quite a barn burner out there.
It was something.
John Fetterman wore a suit. Speaking of dress codes, he went out of his way this time, put a suit on. And here's a little bit.
That must have driven his colleague in the House, Rashida Tlaib, up a wall.
Oh, yes, we should say. Many boycotted the speech. Many Democrats boycotted the speech, which actually sort of led to just a sort of a positive reception.
That's true, rather than something
rudeness or just like sitting and turning backs or anything like that.
On television, though, it was hard to tell if that many people had boycotted. What did they say? 50 members or something?
I think
So I don't know. I think they might have used seat fillers like at the Oscars, and they just have people there. I don't know.
So it was like fairly positive reception. Rashida Tlaib, who is obviously anti, did sit in the audience with a sort of a ping pong paddle.
Size.
that said war criminal on one side and guilty of genocide on the other. And some poor House staffer had to keep telling her that it was against the rules to have that. But she sat, she made her point.
Right.
She became a meme.
She did. People had some fun with it. I forget if it was Neon Taster or somebody else who had the picture and photoshopped instead of the sign saying war criminal. It was just the color green and saying, this is how I am at the Brazilian steakhouse.
Yes.
Just more, please. More meat.
I just said the custom pickleball merch is getting out of control.
Yeah, that's good.
My war criminal paddle.
Yeah, that's good.
So Netanyahu touched on many things, including some of the rhetoric and incidents on American campuses, all with sort of a tying together of like the moral clarity of fighting those who perpetrated this awful act, the worst massacre since the Holocaust, on the people of Israel on October 7th. One of the rescued hostages, Noah Argamani, was in the house. She was there with her father. Really beautiful, got a standing ovation. Here he is talking about America's college campuses.
It's not only the campus protesters who get it wrong. It's also the people who run those campuses. 80 years after the Holocaust, the presidents of Harvard, Penn, and I'm ashamed to say my alma mater, MIT, couldn't bring themselves to condemn the calls for the genocide of Jews. You remember what they said? They said, it depends on the context. Well, let me give these befuddled academics a little context. Anti-Semitism is the world's oldest hatred. For centuries, the massacre of Jews was always preceded by wild accusations. We were accused of everything from poisoning wells, to spreading plagues, to using the blood of slaughtered children to bake Passover matzahs. These preposterous anti-Semitic lies led to persecution, mass murder, and ultimately to history's worst genocide, the Holocaust. Now, just as malicious lies were leveled for centuries at the Jewish people, malicious lies are now being leveled at the Jewish state.
He goes through debunking a lot of those lies, and he basically says, and we can play one more clip of him.
For the forces of civilization to triumph, America and Israel must stand together. Because when we stand together, something very simple happens. We win, they lose.
Our fight is your fight. By defeating these people and by having you by our sides to do that and your backing, thank you to Biden, he says many times, we can declare this victory, make the world safer, avenge these people, bring hostages home, some of which are Americans. Americans were killed on October 7th. Like, we're in this together.
Yeah.
And there are a bunch of people on the left who do not believe that we're in this together, and it is not a mere disagreement about funding of Israel's defenses or Israel's offenses. It is anti-Semitism, as we have seen over and over and over again. Not all of it, but with the gatherings like the one that happened at Union Station, right outside the Capitol, visible from the Senate office buildings, it's real nasty. There was a protest that became a riot at Union Station that tore down American flags, burned those American flags. They beat up cops. They dragged them around that center circle at Union Station. They chased a man, a heroic man, probably a former frat brother.
Oh, who tried to
rescue a flag. He was wearing khakis and a white button down and some docksiders.
Yeah.
And he ran out of the crowd and luckily was not hurt, because they definitely wanted to hurt him for taking that, but he made it out safely. They spray painted "Hamas is coming"
on the Freedom Bell.
On the Freedom Bell in Washington. And this is all sort of like a matter of course.
Yeah.
This is what happened in 2020 and was totally forgiven. In fact,
Yeah.
It was like
ignored,
the barbaric
forgiven.
Yawp of oppressed people is what
Right.
we were told, right?
Right.
Is that a Whitman reference? What is that?
Yeah, true. Poetry, not my thing, Mary Catherine. Yeah.
But we were told that it was righteous. And they're not upset about this.
No.
Now, the Biden White House put out a statement last night through Andrew Bates saying this is unacceptable because he's more of a traditional Democrat.
Sure.
While we are recording on this Thursday, many hours after this has happened, the Harris campaign has not put out anything. Pete Buttigieg has. Biden has.
When Kamala Harris has been asked about this in the past, her way of threading the needle is that, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of stuff I do not agree with and I reject, but I understand where they are coming from, because you have, in this case, she would be able to say that it's because we're talking about Bibi Netanyahu, who's obviously not popular here, not popular back in Israel as well, going through a lot of political turmoil over there, and he obviously his days may be numbered as well in office. But there's that issue, and there's that way. I do want to give, by the way, Mary Catherine, props to Maryland's outgoing, meaning lame duck, Democratic Senator Ben Cardin, because then he ended up presiding, sitting next to Speaker Mike Johnson during Netanyahu's speech. And Cardin just said, look, we have 8 American hostages. And I might not agree with Bibi Netanyahu and have strong disagreements with him, but I want to do everything we can to bring them home. That's why I am here, to talk to him and to listen to him. So props to him. But as you were saying, they burned a flag that, and I understand First Amendment rights, freedom of expression.
Well, it's not their flag.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It's not their flag.
No, we have a bring your own flag policy.
Sure, you want to do that.
If you want to burn a flag, it's got to be
yours.
your flag. Now, if you're stealing other people's flags, that is vandalism, as is defacing all the statues. Now, I imagine we will get something from Harris today, but the inability to act quickly, which the Biden White House did, the inability to act quickly on this is interesting. Now, it's partly, this is a new person heading up an organization that she hadn't been heading up before.
Right.
But there has been hesitancy to alienate these protesters and these rioters because they are part of the left's constituency.
Right. They're basically beholden to these interests, and this is where they are.
And so they're not...
And they're worried about Michigan.
Yeah, and they're not quick to be outraged by this as a lot of normal people
They were
are.
chanting Allahu Akbar while burning the American flag.
It seems like a problem. And now, will they be punished? Likely not. I'm sure some of them were arrested.
Yes, 23 arrested, but how many of them are going to be charged?
I saw a video already of them being let go. So now, will they be charged? Maybe. Will those charges be dropped? Most likely. This is what happens, which is why you've incentivized this behavior.
Right.
And we will see more and more
Why
of
wouldn't
it.
you do it?
And you will see plenty of it in
If you can
Chicago.
get away with it, like little children having these, little, what's the word rants? What's the word I'm talking about? What's the word I'm forgetting here? Temper tantrums, rants, tantrums.
It would be very wise of Harris to be on camera saying forcefully, what I saw was disgusting.
And then announcing that her running mate is
Josh
Shapiro, right?
But I do think we'll get a statement from her, but I don't think we'll see that kind of thing because they're walking a line here.
They are. And
they, unfortunately, many have embraced in the year 2020 this kind of politics, even though, by the way, we are still less than 2 weeks from the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. And we were supposed to be lowering the temperature, but condemning this becomes sort of a challenge. And one more thing.
Yeah.
This is going to be interesting throughout these next couple months. Keep an eye out for it. Biden and Harris are not exactly on the same page.
Right.
Nor can they be, because she needs to be winning over voters that he's not winning over. So he's the sitting president of her party. She's running a campaign with rapid response on everything that's happening in the world. they are going to be at odds over and over again during this campaign because she's going to have to make concessions that he doesn't have to make because he's no longer running. She's going to have to distance herself from this administration because of the record that is not appealing to the very voters she must get.
Right.
So it's going to be some tension. There's going to be some tension.
The split screen ads. This is what could do it for, if you're on the Republican side and if you're on the Trump campaign, all you need to do is split screen, scenes from Republican convention, and on the other side, the burning of the American flag and the chanting of Allahu Akbar, and say, which one do you want?
Yeah.
Like, which is preferable here?
Well, like, the fact is that the young people constituency, such that it is, the GOP has, which is not big, they're the UNC frat guys.
Yeah.
And they were invited on stage at the RNC because
That's right.
that is an image that people want to project. Right. If you asked the most vibrant young people constituency to speak at the DNC, the message would look very different. Right?
Yeah. Kind of a downer.
They're animated by a very different issue.
I should say, to be more specific, the split screen would be the UNC frat bros.
Yeah.
Protecting the flag versus the ones who are burning it. Which one, on what side are you? Because maybe you're on the other side. Fine. It's a free country, I guess. But, I would like to think that most Americans would think that the burning of the American flag and those chants, and also Hamas is coming, and Hamas flags at Union Station.
It's wild.
That's not cool.
It's wild. Okay, I'm going to tell you one sort of silly but sleazy thing to end this because it's a little bit
silly
more
and sleazy, right up my alley.
It's a little bit more lighthearted, although it's still on the subject of the press driving me absolutely insane. Yesterday, there was also an internet rumor. Someone created images of what looked like pages of Hillbilly Elegy that alleged that J.D. Vance in that book told a story about how he took some liberties with some furniture.
What?
Yes. The AP elevated these excerpts, faked excerpts, to do a fact check of the nobodies who were passing this nonsense around, alleging that he had done this thing. That story has now been disappeared as well. Do you think that if I just created a nonsense, salacious rumor about Kamala Harris and put it in a image as if it was from a book she had written, do you think the AP would pick up my salacious rumor and sort of elevate it for everyone's enjoyment so they could fact check it responsibly? I don't think that would happen.
The forces arrayed around us, Mary Catherine.
I'm annoyed.
It's a lot.
I'm annoyed.
Well, I'm glad that
I'm a ray of sunshine today, guys.
Yes, I know. Well, but I'm glad because I think that's it for the news. We're done. I think there's nothing else that could possibly happen, right? Okay.
Oh wait.
What?
Breaking news.
Uh-oh.
We just got a Kamala statement.
So I will look at this on the show.
I will not give her short shrift.
Okay.
A written statement. Yesterday at Union Station in Washington, D.C., we saw despicable acts by unpatriotic protesters and dangerous, hate-fueled rhetoric. I condemn any individuals associating with the brutal terrorist organization Hamas, which has vowed to annihilate the state of Israel and kill Jews. Pro-Hamas graffiti and rhetoric is abhorrent, and we must not tolerate it in our nation. I condemn the burning of the American flag. The flag is a symbol of our highest ideals as a nation and represents the promise of America. It should never be desecrated in that way. I support the right to peacefully protest, but let's be clear, anti-Semitism, hate, and violence of any kind have no place in our nation. So she got the job done.
Moving towards the center.
A little later than everyone else got the job done.
Okay. All right. Well, on that note, that wraps up this episode of Getting Hammered. Remember, you can subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube. You can follow me on Twitter at Victorino Matas.
I am at MK Hammer on Twitter, at MK Hammer Time on Instagram. You can follow the show at Getting Hammered Podcast on YouTube or Instagram. I'm going to be brighter and sunnier by the time I get back here.
Depends on the news, really.
It's just an adjustment period.
Yeah.
Thanks for being with us. This has been a Nebulous Media Podcast.